Well, good morning, and thank you, Rod. Again, as you look at what's going on here, this is a great expo, and I've had the pleasure of attending some of the different sessions there, and there's so many great ideas and best practices. Hopefully you're taking a lot of those back with you as you go back to your work environment. As to my background, I was with Toyota for many years. I can honestly say I failed retirement after I left Toyota. Started my own company from an energy consulting standpoint. So topic today, advancing your energy program through treasure hunts. And again, just kind of taking you through, not from a technical standpoint, but more from a program or a strategy type approach as you look at energy efficiency inside your organization. So again, we're going to summarize aspects of an overall energy program. I want to start there first because it's not just about day-to-day activities, but it's an overall strategy and initiatives from that aspect. Talk a little bit about the energy treasure hunt philosophies with emphasis. You do identify projects, but this is also about culture and behavior. Discuss the next steps involved in organizing and executing a treasure hunt, and then looking at the overall benefits associated with it. So what's the driver for energy in your organization? What is that? Is it cost? Is it the environmental aspect of it? The CO2 reduction, the greenhouse gas reductions? What really drives energy efficiency? Or from the security or the reliability standpoint? And as you look at these, hopefully all three of them are drivers with your energy program. But again, it varies from organization to organization. As I walk into plants and look at energy efficiency, tell you the truth, bottom line, usually cost is the key driver. And sometimes that's the only driver. But as you look at where we're going as just globally, where we are looking at the environmental aspect also, again, the CO2, the greenhouse gas, it is important, and hopefully all three are drivers as you look at your energy program. Basically, though, when you look at energy, it's an operating cost. Bottom line, when everything's said and done, it's an operating cost and should be managed accordingly. So when you look at your overall program, because it is a program inside, or should be a program inside your organization, there's a whole variety of different responsibilities, kind of the vertical bars underneath, whatever that happens to be inside your organization. But what goes horizontally across the organization? It's your safety program. Everybody's responsible for it and everybody should be involved with it. Your policies, your human resources, your KPIs, your key performance indicators, your culture, and energy or sustainability should be one of those also. Because again, it's not just the person that wears the energy hat, but it's everybody in the organization that should have some responsibility for it. So when you look at some of the typical strategies, and again, a lot of these there's been discussions on them, other presenters have talked about them, but kind of that core in there, looking at energy or sustainability should be a business integration. It should be part of your business model. It's not a little island out there on its own that a couple people are responsible for. It's everybody in the organization. And there's a whole variety of other strategies, all the way from supplier support to looking at, building energy into specifications, et cetera there. And treasure hunt is a tool inside your overall strategy. And I want to emphasize that. It's a tool. It's one component. It's about projects, but it's also about culture and how do you build that inside an organization. Some of the focus areas as you look at energy as a whole, again, procurement, greenfield plants, how do you build energy into the design up front so you don't have to go back and redo it, smaller capital projects, maybe lighting retrofits, but the day-to-day operational changes. And that's really the low cost, no cost, and that's where a treasure hunt focuses on. And literally what I see with the treasure hunts is around 70 to 75% of the ideas generated from a treasure hunt are actually operational changes. They're not large capital. Again, everything is evaluated, but it's day-to-day operational changes. How do I take what I already have and make it more efficient? So just kind of the concepts associated with this, looking at knowledge, internal and external, because as you build these teams inside a treasure hunt, it's very important to have a whole variety of different people in diverse groups. And I'll talk a little bit more about the teams. The go and see, you got to get out on the plant floor. You can do whatever you want sitting inside an office, but guess what? That's not what is occurring out on the plant floor. You need to get out there and see what's actually happening. And it's a 3-day event looking at non-production and production. It's amazing walking into a plant that says, oh, we turn everything off, we have all these systems in place, and you walk into a plant on Sunday and it looks like production is still running, except for nobody's there. So again, a 3-day type event, identify energy use in the workplace, understanding how much energy you really use and where is it being used. Doug mentioned a little bit about the metering and the systems there. You need to understand that. Conceive new ideas and share best practices. Again, that's what you learn from expos or conferences like this that you go to, or benchmarking with other organizations. And finding ways to save, identifying projects, but again, that's only one piece of it. How do you build the culture inside the organization so this happens on a daily basis? And then just part of the energy involvement or continuous improvement as a whole. So just real quick on the history here. Again, this was something that was started back in Toyota in the 90s. Actually, I was fortunate enough, my team was developing this back then. And again, we called it treasure hunts because imagine walking, and I'm sure many of you do, walk into a plant and say, hey, we're here from corporate, we're here to help, and we're going to audit your energy program. You know that kind of response you get as the door closes behind you. So again, a different approach, but it's based upon the culture side of it. Again, it was something we developed and we used at the North American plants, but also we used globally across Toyota network as a whole. Even Japan, they were using treasure hunt concepts. And it's part of the Toyota production system. You can call it whatever you want, from continuous improvement, but basically it's continuous improvement initiatives. And again, Energy Star also has documentation of guiding principles of how to do a treasure hunt. If you're interested, just go to the energystar.gov website and there's information in there too. So again, there's really kind of 5 different areas as you look at the continuous improvement, the engagement and involvement. That's the optimization. How do I take what I already have and make it more efficient? Doesn't mean you shouldn't look at modifications, capital improvements, but looking at what you have first sends a whole different perspective when you go in and start talking to management about money when you're looking at just improving what you had. The teamwork, people out on the plant floor they know what's going on inside that plant and have some great ideas. How do you pull that out of them and capture that information and use that as a resource too? And with the treasure hunt, yes, I'm a consultant, but it's using the resources inside the plant to help with the projects and the activities because that creates the ownership. So when I walk away, the ownership is with the plant, and they're the ones that are going to continue and move the projects or the ideas forward. And then the philosophies, all good ideas, or all ideas are good ideas inside a treasure hunt. We capture all the information and thinking outside the box. And one thing I always say, because part of the philosophy with continuous improvement is asking the questions why. Why? Why are things done that way? Is there a better way to do it? Is make sure that people aren't taking things personally because you are in their turf and you're questioning what they do and how they do it. Kind of the basic phases of a treasure hunt: preparation, 6 weeks gathering information. Until you gather the information and understand how a plant operates, it's very difficult to make changes. And even if you do, you have no idea what happened. So that preparation phase, pre-training and meeting with the people that are going to be involved in it. And then the 3-day on-site event, looking at it from a summer or a production and a non-production time frame is important. And then the follow-up, making sure that there's an implementation and next steps forward. Because the last thing you want is for all these ideas to be sitting on some desk somewhere and nothing happens with them. Just a basic outline with the agenda. Again, looking at it from a non-production standpoint. We spend a lot of time from an education standpoint first of what do you look for when you walk into a plant? On a compressed air system, on a vacuum system, on a chilled water system, and teaching them what to look for. They're knowledgeable, they have ideas, but again, kind of setting those standards. We do that for a non-production time frame. We do it for production. The teams come back. We talk about what the findings are, the results associated with it, the implementation process, and then there is a closeout meeting at the end of the 3rd day with management. Management is involved from day one. When we set up the organizational structure and we talk about what's going to take place first, the senior management is engaged, and the senior management is expected to be in the closeout meeting to hear the results of what the people found and understand and give some guidance as to what are the next steps. So just basic information on the plant, Just an example, the electricity, the sewer, the water, the natural gas cost. Most of the times when you put this up on the screen for the first time with the people that are in there that aren't familiar with it, they have no idea how much energy is spent in the plant. I've had plant presidents attend, and he said, I had no idea that this is the operating cost for energy inside that plant. So having this information is critical, that awareness and engagement. And we take it down as far as we can to compressed air, to chilled water. Again, in order to manage it, you need to be able to measure it. We look at everything inside the plant, and we approach it by systems, but it's a plant as a whole. It's looking at the supply side, but it's also looking at the end user side, because how they use the energy in a production process is just as critical as what you supply. So again, everything's fair game, and even maintenance and operations. How do you maintain the equipment? How do you operate the equipment has a direct effect on the energy efficiency of that piece of equipment. So everything is fair game as we look at the treasure hunt as a whole. The teams, I've gone in and done treasure hunts with 6 teams, 2 teams, 3 teams. It depends upon the size of the plant and the organizational structure. What I want to emphasize there on the screen, though, is it's not just about the people that wear the energy hat. It's maintenance, it's engineering, it's procurement, it's accounting, it's environmental, it's outside contractors that have more expertise than maybe we do inside the plant. It's utility companies coming in as part of the teams. But the teams are very important because they're the ones getting out on the plant floor and looking at ideas and generating new concepts and kind of that open box type approach. I've even had a plant president attend some of the, be on one of the teams inside the treasure hunt. And it was phenomenal as to what that portrayed to the team members on the floor about how important energy was when the plant president was walking around looking at ideas and asking people about turning equipment off and whose responsibility was and was there any standardized work. If you look at the treasure hunt process, again, it's identifying the opportunities, the analysis, the evaluation. A lot of the implementation doesn't take place because it's only 3 days. But besides coming up with ideas, there's the calculations that are done to identify what the savings and implementation costs are, and going through that whole process. And this is just part of continuous improvement, that PDCA cycle, the plan, do, check, action. You can see it's the same type of approach. This is just a calculator or a tool that we use. It's an Excel spreadsheet with a whole bunch of macros and other stuff running in the background, but all the formulas, or the majority of formulas, are already developed in here. So we don't have to worry about a person having an engineering background to understand how to do calculations for electrical savings or gas savings. It's part of the process. And then that first day, as I mentioned through the agenda, it's very important to identify and go through questions and answers and best practices and ideas of what should I look for when I walk out on the plant floor to get people prepared so when they look at the compressed air system, they look at the chilled water system, they know what to look for and they have ideas associated with it. So we go through a whole variety of things early on in the first day to prepare them for that. So they have ideas and concepts, but we bring it together as a package. So just on a compressed air system, these may be some of the things that we looked at as we go through a treasure hunt. So again, it's looking at it from an operational standpoint too. Some of these you may think are very basic, but it's amazing when you walk into a plant what you see from an operational standpoint that can be improved. Why is the header pressure at 120 pounds when it could be maybe at 100? Well, it was that way when I got here. When did you get here? I've been here 20 years. Nobody looked at it. Nobody questioned it. So again, as you go through the process, it's asking those questions of why things are done certain ways. Just a detail component related to what to look at as they get out on the plant floor, and this is information they take with them as best practices. Again, some of this is from my background and my information, but as was mentioned early on, there's a whole slew of information out there of best practices and ideas on all these different systems. So the results associated with the treasure hunt, the teams actually do the presentation. I, as a facilitator, usually go through and explain the background first of the treasure hunt, and then each teams report out what they found based upon their the 3-day actual event. So this is coming from the people on the plant floor. This isn't coming from someone from the outside. This is coming from the people on the plant floor that have these ideas that have been generated from what they found. And again, we summarize it all together into a package of what the savings are. And again, one of the comments made earlier, you need to put this in management terms. You don't talk BTUs or kilowatt hours going in and talking to a VP somewhere. You have to put it in dollar terms. How does it affect them? What's the operating cost? What's the cost savings per product out the door that we're looking at? So again, having all that and using those contexts and methodologies is also very important. The implementation, just as important. You identify all these ideas, the teams come up with them, they do the presentation, and it's very important to make sure there's an implementation stage, the next steps that occur. And that's not just saying, okay, Joe, you're responsible for this. This is actually looking at, reporting back out on a quarterly basis or identifying what these ideas are and the savings associated with it and building them into the budgets. Again, it's very important as you move through the implementation process. So some of the benefits associated with this, again, this isn't your typical audit because you're involving much more of the people on the plant floor in this event as a whole. And you're you're educating them, you're getting involved, but also you're making them responsible or have the ownership when everything is done. And again, it's not just about the people on the plant floor that have the energy hat or that wear the energy hat, it's everybody else. And it's amazing to watch the snowball effect of what happens inside one of these events because people go back to their areas. A production person coming off the plant floor that usually works the production line going back and talking about energy efficiency to their teams or to their group. It's a whole snowball effect, and that's where the culture comes into the picture. So again, we are looking at reducing cost, the greenhouse gas. Again, it just ties into sustainability. Water is usually included in this also, but it sparks the employee ownership of energy saving strategies, sharing best practices. It's amazing as you go from plant to plant inside a company. I've had the pleasure of doing about 10 plants with this one particular company. I won't say the name, but we started seeing trends. Compressed air system was one of the trends we saw that, pressure set points were scattered all over the creation from plant to plant. Why is this plant that produces the same product at 110 pounds, this one's at 90? The best practices that we're sharing across the organization have been phenomenal. So basically, as you look at conclusion, again, as you look at a treasure hunt, it's focusing on two different areas. One is the project side, because that's the savings. But the other part is the culture side. If you don't have the culture side, your program is not going to be sustainable. It's going to come and go based upon cost price or the cost of energy coming into the plant, maybe on electricity. The price goes up, all of a sudden, we need to focus on this. The price goes down and everybody ignores it. So again, looking at the culture side and having a sustainability program. Using the internal and external knowledge. There's a lot of knowledge inside a plant, but you guys coming in as experts from these different systems, it's very important to have that expertise in the event also. But asking those questions why, and that's part of continuous improvement. Why do you do it this way? Is there a better way to do that? And again, it's not being negative, but in order to improve, you have to understand your current situation in order to improve it or Kaizen it. And again, best practices or best ideas are still just ideas unless implemented. Did a treasure hunt at a plant, and the first one was roughly a year ago. We went back to that plant, and the first thing we did on the second treasure hunt is go out and check the items to see if they were implemented from the first one. And it was interesting because about 50% of them were, but the other 50% were still sitting there. They hadn't been implemented, and these were low-cost, no-cost items that had months payback, less than a year payback. So again, using that implementation strategy is also very important. And sharing best practices, having people come from other plants inside the organization or the company and building that rapport and that network, just like you guys do here, but you're doing it from plant to plant and sharing those ideas and concepts. And again, looking at continuous improvement philosophy, you can do all the projects you want, but if you aren't going to build the culture inside the company and get other people engaged, it's going to be just like a sine wave. It goes up and down based upon priorities. And again, making treasure hunt part of just the day-to-day activities that occur inside an organization is very important as you move through the process. So my little sayings at the end, when you look at energy as a whole. Again, only use what you need when you need it and the amount needed. And talking about just-in-time as a continuous improvement initiative for parts, for a whole variety of things, why isn't energy set up the same way? That it's there when it's needed and then it's turned off accordingly. So again, I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and share this information with you. If there's any questions, we can do it outside because I know we're on a tight schedule here. But again, thank you very much and appreciate it.